good question. Let's go. Make it fun. Ava, let's do another one.
Okay. Sorry.
We'll come to you, Courtney, in just a few seconds.
I don't know if I have this right exactly, but when Jesus was crucified on the cross, that curtain tore in half.
Yep.
And that was like when people went up to heaven or something, like when they could go or something. What did that mean? When the thing tore?
Go for it, absolutely.
Okay. In the Jewish temple, you had the outer court where like the Gentiles and other people could worship. You had the inner court where the Jews could come and worship. You had the holy place where the priests did their thing. And in there you had this place called the Holy of Holies. And in that Holy of Holies you had the Ark of the Covenant, and only the high priest, after he had done a ton of cleansing rituals, could enter that place one time a year. And it was to make atonement for the people of Israel. And so he would go in there to perform the proper ceremony and everything for there to be atonement for the people of Israel. And it had to be only the priest who could go in there. Well, when the curtain was torn, it symbolized that now there is no separation. That it's not kept away from the people, that only the priest goes in there and no one else can, but it is now wide open, the Holy of Holies, access to God. That's where Moses would go when he would go into the tabernacle to speak with the Lord. He would go into the Holy of Holies. And so now, symbolically, the curtain being torn says God's accessible to anyone.
And the neat thing about that is that it was torn top to bottom, not bottom to top. So it wasn't torn by man, it was torn by God. And the Holy of Holies was such a unique place that when that priest went in there, they had bells on his robe because they wanted to make sure he was still alive. Because if he still had sin in his life, he would die. And they tied a rope around his foot because they couldn't go in there, and they would drag him out. And when he walked in the room to make the offering in order to talk to God, it made the symbol of a cross on the floor. A little cheesy information there. But if you look back at the the birth of John the Baptist, his dad is the high priest. And he goes in there and he comes out mute. And they all think for the longest time it's because of sin. It's not because of sin. It's because God's touched him to get ready to announce what the Son's name will be. And that was the agreement. And so you get to see how God acts in that one little moment right there. It's a small glimpse of how people think and look at it.
Does everybody know what we're talking about here? Because it might confuse some of you folks. I'm going to read it in Luke. I think it's probably better from Matthew, but I didn't make it over there to read it yet. So I'm just going to read it to you from Luke. It's in Luke 23, and I'm going to read starting at verse 44. I just want you to know where it says what you were talking about, Ava. They had Jesus on the cross. They were crucifying him. And this is right as he had finished saying, "It is finished." So when he died, it said, "By this time it was noon, and darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. The light from the sun was gone, and suddenly the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn down the middle." I just wanted y'all to know that was it's in all. Actually, it's not in all the Gospels. It's not in John at all. John doesn't have any recollection of the curtain being torn. So I just wanted you guys to know that it is in the Bible what she was referring to, and Mark did a great job of explaining why it was there. So cool.